I thought I had bonded with my father through an interesting ancestral test, but then I found out that he wasn't actually my father, and I broke down. I used to see posts like this all the time, but I never thought I'd be writing one myself at the age of 35. I'm sharing my story in the hope of connecting with someone who might understand what I've been through. If you have read this far, please know that I experienced a lot of denial at the beginning of this process. As someone who believes in science and data, it was hard for me to accept this fact. If you knew right away in a similar situation, please understand. I just wasn't capable of doing that. At least not at first. I did my best. Just a week ago on Halloween night, as I was getting ready for bed at 2 a.m., I received an email informing me that the results of my ancestry DNA test were in. I couldn't wait to see the results, so I decided to take a quick peek. I was very excited because a few years ago, when my father's mother, my closest living grandparent, passed away, I had participated in the project with him. We were happy to continue her family tree research together, discovering and exploring the extended branches of our family. But as soon as I opened the page for the region, I was immediately confused. 3 of my grandparents, all of whom have since passed away, had a strong Ashkenazi background, which has always been an important part of my identity. While my living family members are not strictly religious, we have always had strong ethnic and cultural ties to Judaism. But when I checked the results, I found that my Ashkenazi ancestry was only 34%, which was in stark contrast to my brother's 80% Ashkenazi ancestry when he tested a few years ago. I'm convinced that perhaps he inherited the most of these genes, while I inherited the least. I had never heard my family talk about these regions, nor had I ever seen them in any research: France, Basque, Finland. I ruled them out as well, recalling posts I had seen about people's DNA results changing after a recent Ancestry platform update. Then I looked at my parents' ancestral origins and found that all my Ashkenazi ancestors came from paternal line 1, while all these unexpected ancestral origins came from maternal line 2. I felt a wave of panic, but quickly assigned paternal line 1 to my father, who had 2 parents of Ashkenazi descent, and maternal line 2 to my mother, who had 1 parent of Ashkenazi descent. I kept reassuring myself that this was just an extreme genetic distribution and nothing more. Then I opened the DNA matching section and saw that my brother was listed there. This didn't surprise me because I knew he had taken the test a few years ago, but then I saw that he was listed as my half-brother. I quickly changed the label to full brother, ignoring the warning in the pop-up window. As I continued reading, I noticed that there were 2 other people listed below my brother. They were listed as my maternal grandparents, but their names were not those of the grandparents I had grown up with. They were my grandparents, close friends, and fake grandparents during my formative years. I gasped and insisted that my mother had been adopted by her parents and that the 2 families had always maintained close ties. After hours of pondering, I called my father, even though he and my mother had been divorced for 15 years, and I was never used to involving them in each other's affairs. I just needed confirmation that I could always call my father when I needed help. When I asked him if he knew whether my mother had been adopted, he laughed and assured me that she hadn't. I told him what I had discovered, omitting details that I didn't think were relevant. My father remained silent while I explained, but he patiently listened as I explained my theory. The more we talked, the more contradictions we found, and the more frustrated I became. Then, to my shock, Dad suggested that he might doubt his paternity. I laughed, even got angry with him, and tried to steer the conversation back to my mom's adoption. But as he checked his and my 23 results, I went back to my DNA matching section to find my closest relatives on my father's side. I clicked on Family Tree, expecting to see familiar names. They were familiar, just not paternal. The family tree showed the mother's relatives. That's when it dawned on me. I had got my parents mixed up. Paternal 1 was my mother, and paternal 2 was my father. After the correct assignment, my biological grandparents became my paternal grandparents. When I confirmed this with my father, he disputed it, telling me that it was still not a 100% match because my brother was shown as being fully related to me. Then I admitted that I had changed my brother's relationship with me, thinking at first that it was a mistake. When I reset my brother's status to the default, it showed as a half-brother. At that moment, after 2 hours of frustration, I finally broke down. The person who had always been my father, my close family member, was not related to me biologically. By 5 a.m., I was exhausted and ashamed of how desperately I had denied it. My father told me that he had known since the first results I shared that he might not be my biological father, not because he had ever suspected it, but because he believed in science. He said that the most difficult part of discovering this with me was watching me try so hard to rewrite the facts. The next 24 hours were spent awake and depressed, going through the most heartbreaking conversations of my life. My mother told me that early in her marriage to my father, she had a very brief affair. It was just that once. She thought she had taken all the precautions and had no reason to suspect, so she put the past behind her. She later gave birth to 3 children, all of whom looked like my father, and no one in our family ever suspected otherwise. If it weren't for this test, this hidden history would never have been revealed. The past week has been very difficult, and the first few days were really close to breaking me. But I chose to face it with tolerance and understanding, hoping to gain some positive insights from it. My father and I both agreed that, although unexpected, finding out the truth together over the phone was probably the best way to go. Our relationship is unbreakable, and we both know that this fact will not change anything between us. As for my relationship with my mother, we have not always been close. But over the past 7 years, we have gradually come to understand each other in a way I never thought possible. She got married at the age of 20 and gave birth to me at 21, and before starting a family, she had a difficult past and very limited opportunities to explore herself. As our bond grew deeper, I often wished I could turn back time and become friends with the young mother, showing her an alternative life, one similar to the one I currently love and live. Thanks in large part to her, I understand that she made a mistake when she was young, but I don't feel any anger towards her. I realize that in many ways, I am luckier than most people in this situation. I have a supportive family, including my siblings, who are very supportive and completely behind me in whatever decision I make, including contacting my biological father. I have already contacted an NP non-parental event therapist, and my first session is this Tuesday. I have also ordered a few books written by people who have experienced similar situations in the hope that they will provide some guidance. My friends are all supportive, and their support has been a great comfort. Sharing my story here feels like an important part of dealing with everything and a way to connect with a community that truly feels like family. I know there are many choices ahead, including whether to contact my biological father, what to say if I do, and how to reignite my interest in exploring my ancestry. I hope I can carry on my grandmother's legacy, learning to appreciate every branch of the family tree, even if my connection to each is now very different. Thank you for giving me a space to share my story. /related comments commenter, this brought tears to my eyes. Your father sounds like an amazing man, and you have a very mature view of your mother. I started a family in my 30s and can't imagine getting married at 20 when she was just a child. Operator reply: Thank you very much. Yes, my father is a good man and he is very understanding and open-minded about this. I know that many people would choose the other way in this situation. I also thought about myself and the things I did and the mistakes I made at the age of 20. When I discussed this with my mother, I tried to remain objective. Commenter 2, you have already made contact with your biological father. It is not just about blood ties. I think you should let it go. Operator response: Yes, agreed. No one can take the place of my father. Part of the reason I made this decision is that my father indicated to me that he would like to have a discussion with my biological father. They know each other, have each other and their families around them, and are even friends. He feels very betrayed. I understand how he feels. My father is also getting older and does not have as much time as I do to deal with these things and to achieve the outcome he wants. I just don't want to deny him the expressed wish to move on by answering some questions. This does not mean that I have to talk to the biological father, but my father is waiting for my blessing, or rather for me to open the can of worms. I'm sure in this case my mother would inform him first. Then my father could contact as he wished. Commenter 2, I understand. I'm sure he won't do it unless he gets the chance. But I don't think it will bring any benefit. Even if he is betrayed, he still gets something very special from it.
You
You are still in his life. They are not. He should let go. Absolutely agree. I've already told him my opinion. I did ask him to talk to my mom first. The two of them have been trying to have a conversation over the next few months. Maybe the answers he wants can come from her, and then he won't have to contact my biological father anymore. I'm just giving him time to see how he feels, and then reassess. Update after 3 months and 1 week. Thanks to everyone who read and commented on my last post. The past 4 months have flown by, and a lot has happened. I promise to keep you all updated on my progress, so here goes. I have been very mindful of my NP journey since Halloween last year. In November, I started seeing a therapist who specializes in the NP experience, and she is amazing. I feel very lucky. Not only did I find a therapist who is a perfect fit for me, but she also went through the exact same experience as me in 2018. She has helped me navigate the emotional impact and logistics of discovering the truth. As for contacting my biological father, I have finally asked my mom to tell him the news and observe his reaction. Here's the background. I actually grew up with my biological father and half-siblings, but didn't know about our connection. None of us did. His parents, my biological grandparents, were good friends with my grandparents, my mom's parents, and he grew up with my mom. Although technically he wasn't a stranger, we hadn't spoken in years. When my mom told him the truth, he was completely shocked, but also happy, and immediately expressed a strong desire to talk things through my way. A few days later, I called him and explained how I had found out the truth. We talked for a while, but he spent most of the time crying and deeply ashamed of what had happened, especially what he had done to my father. He told me that he wanted to talk to my father to make amends. My biological father reached out to him, and they had several conversations. He expressed his apologies and assured my father that he could never and would never replace him. Despite the pain, my father showed great forgiveness and was willing to build a relationship with my biological father. This was not surprising, as they were actually friends long ago, before and during my parents' marriage. Although they had not spoken for many years, they had never really been strangers. I made it clear to them that whatever relationship they chose was entirely up to them. Their journey of forgiveness was none of my business, and I supported them no matter what path they chose. After Christmas, I saw my biological father when I was home for the holidays. They drove for a few hours to see me and my mother. The reunion was a bit rushed, but I knew they were eager, and I knew that delaying it would only make me more anxious. My father was initially torn up about the timing, feeling like things were moving too fast, but I assured him that it was the right decision for me and my recovery. I didn't want to delay this important moment, and I wanted to meet as soon as possible to answer any questions, understand my true health, and set some boundaries. In the end, my father understood and supported me, and even offered to meet with them to discuss similar things. The reunion itself was surreal. I met my biological father, his wife, whom he met long after I was born, my 2 half-siblings, and my biological grandparents. Although I had known them since I was a teenager, the atmosphere was different. They all cried, hugged me, and said they were happy I had shown up in their lives. We ate, drank, and tried to keep everything as natural as possible. We even went out for dinner and toasted everyone's ability to handle the news. The last glass was for my dad, which brought me to complete tears. I cried when they left. When I shared my regional DNA results, one thing caught my eye. My biological father confirmed that his grandfather was not his father's father. The family had suspected a difference in DNA for some time, and my results confirmed it, and allowed my biological father to tell his father that he was not related to him by blood. Because of my discovery, it became another story. I've spoken to my biological father a few times since that visit, but the atmosphere has always been relaxed. After such emotional and stressful times in November and December, we both felt the need to adjust to the new reality. The new year has been refreshing as we have been trying to get back to normal, dealing with day-to-day life while continuing to communicate with our therapists. As time goes on, the world becomes stranger and stranger, and I try to stay calm and put my discovery into perspective. Seeing it as an episode in my experience has made me interesting and inspired me to rethink my understanding of connection, relationships, and family, with the continued support of friends and family. I don't think there is anything more I need to do at this time. Looking ahead, I want to wait until the summer to start researching my ancestors. My goal is to continue helping my father with his family tree, even though my DNA will not be an asset to him. I will continue to improve my mother's family tree, and I have agreed to help my biological father with more family research, as he does not know who his biological grandfather is. I want to find a way to connect with all three trees, even though they all feel different to me. In the meantime, I will be compiling a health history and other information about my biological family so that I can provide my real health history to my doctor for the first time. Thanks again to everyone who has followed and supported me. If you're going through something similar and would like to talk, please feel free to PM. Second update 2 months and 2 weeks later. Over the past 24 hours, it seems that quite a few people have found this post and made similar comments. They accuse me of being selfish, say I don't care about my father's feelings, insult my mother and me, insist that I should make her pay for her mistakes, and accuse me of being a terrible daughter for not doing so. This is in stark contrast to the comments the post has received over the past 5 months. I don't know which MRA subreddit you're all from, and I'm not interested in the rude comments made in the thread. I can assure you that I have spent hundreds of hours over the past few months talking to every member of my family, and especially my father, to make sure they can work through this together and get the therapy they need. Just because I haven't published my father's thoughts or our most intimate conversations doesn't mean I don't care, or that nothing is happening. I would like to point out that no one in this thread knows the full history of my parents' relationship or marriage. As far as I know, both my parents have made big mistakes during their time together. They both have regrets, and these regrets are not limited to their relationship. Starting with my mother's infidelity and ending with my father's infidelity, they have not been honest about it. No one is a winner, and no one is innocent. I don't want this argument to turn into a competition, with people insisting that I or someone else should be punished. From the beginning, I made it clear to all the adults involved that I am not a pawn in the parents' relationship or their problems. I am an independent and autonomous person. My father is dealing with my mother, and they have had conversations about it. But he has also made it clear that mediation is not my responsibility, that he does not want to pursue consequences, does not want anyone to pay, and certainly not me. He insists on handling everything himself. I cannot tell anyone here how they will handle this, but if you have a problem with our process, one that does not include the concepts of payback or revenge, you need to do some serious work on yourself. Also, many of you seem to be supporting my father and his autonomy, but you are speaking for him, insisting that he doesn't know how he feels or that he is lying. You think you know his history or who he is. You are imposing your own insecurities on him just because his actions don't match your expectations, denying him the real experience. And he is not as angry and vindictive as you are. He has expressed how much this has hurt him. He is trying to cope. I'm sure there is an untold side to him too. But if he has feelings that he doesn't share with me, there is nothing I can do about it. I'm not going to call him a liar or force him to. I'm not his therapist either. When he has other feelings to share, I'll be here and will respect his process. In the meantime, I hope some of you can do better. Please remember to read the context and be less hateful and judgmental. Thanks. Top related comments commenter, I stumbled upon this comment after the latest update, and my goodness, it's like I'm telling my own story, just with some details changed to hide my identity. I was 39 years old, a first-time mom to a 6-month-old, and less than a month into the pandemic lockdown, an unknown cousin match appeared. I assumed it was my father's younger brother, a lifelong bachelor with a child we didn't know about, and contacted him. My new cousin told me that he didn't know who my father's family was, but that his mother was from the same village as my mother's, and that his uncle and grandfather still lived there. He mentioned his uncle's name, and my phone dropped to the ground. I had known him since my teens. He was my mother's high school sweetheart and had even attended my wedding a few years ago. I had babysat for his kids a few times. The biggest difference between us is your bravery. Although my biological father knows I exist, we have never spoken in 5 years. I visit my family with my children every year, hoping to bump into him. Last year, my youngest decided to try to make friends, and that was the last time I had contact with him. At a gathering, my mother pointed out a much older child to me and said that he was the son of my half-brother. I see you. Opie, You are a very strong woman, daring to take the initiative to contact your biological father and his family. I am proud of you. Maybe it will inspire me, but the thought of that awful, uncomfortable conversation makes me think it probably won't. OP's response: thank you very much for your message. The comments in recent days have been very pointed, and I don't think they understand the message I'm trying to convey. I wouldn't say you lack courage. I think reconnecting is the best way to resolve certain issues, and that's what I need. I also have relationships that could be reunited more easily in another world. I can see that it takes more time to figure things out. And it does vary from person to person and from dynamic to dynamic. But yes, our stories do seem so similar. If you want to talk, let me know. I can send you a private message. I have set my private messages to friends only because I have received a lot of malicious messages in the past few days. I would love to connect with people who resonate, even if they approach it differently. Anyway, good luck to all of you, and I will keep you in my thoughts.